Witness B, then at paragraph 26, you deal with how Mr. Molefe was then linked to the Swart murder. Can you take the commission through this process?
Oh, yes. Besides what I've already touched on by the cell phone data, and it goes a little further more because even the downloads, they still bring him closer to this case, not even closer. He's part of that. What I can say now, there's a date that I'm gonna mention, but maybe before I go to the date, let me first explain to the commissioners as to why are we here in the first place. This all started when the company at Transnet called SK Group was awarded with a tender. And then in this tender, it has been established that there was a lot of manipulation. First of all, that in the process of awarding that tender, there was two things that were very outstanding. Is to say in competition with this SK Group, there was two also more companies, of which it was Mount Gate Trading and Striveforth. And then as investigation progresses, we learned that this Mount Gate and Striveforth, they actually domained companies, meaning there was no competition in the first place for the SK.
We were just having a technical difficulty. Can you explain the scheme again, the Transnet scheme?
Okay. Yes, it starts from a tender that was awarded to a group called SK. And then the SK Group, the awarding process itself, it shows that there was a problem because the two competitors, it was Striveforth and Mount Gate. When we do investigation, we can tell now that those two were just domained companies, meaning this SK didn't have any competition to start with. But I'll go back to SK itself. SK itself, it's connected to a person called Lucky Molefe. Lucky Molefe is the nephew to Katiso Molefe. This SK Group was awarded this tender, and then after it was awarded this tender, all we can tell it was a manipulation because of these two companies. Already Lucky Molefe is the buyer, is the one who was facilitating this process. So already Lucky Molefe knew that he's going to give it to SK because these ones were just there to make it look like, but it was not really the true reflection of the competition. There was no competition for SK. However, what makes this thing complex is that we have a company called QTech that has a relationship with Transnet for over 40 years. And it has been supplying Transnet with, they call it springs and accessories. I don't know the right word, but it's a small spring. I've seen it during the course of my investigation that was supplied to Transnet straight from them as they are the manufacturers. However, in 2023, they were surprised because they learned now that there is this SK Group coming to them to buy the very same spring that they normally supply to the Transnet. But in this instance, it looks like the tender was awarded to SK. And their first surprise, it was normally the tenders are advertised, and this one, it was never advertised. They were surprised to see that there was actually a tender by this SK coming to them to buy these springs. But it gets worse because now they sell these springs with legally like 3.95, but nothing more than 4 rand each. However, the SK group, when they submitted their purchase order to them, they were shocked to see they selling the very same spring that was 3.95 to Transnet on the price of 151 rand. And then when the inspector to inspect the springs before they were released, they raised a concern to say, how are you aware, Transnet, that you're buying something that worth less than 4 rand with 151 rand? And then the inspector said, no, we're not aware, but I'm going to escalate to the managers, of which, according to the inspector, he didn't. But eventually, like, he got to know about the grief of the QTech. That's where the problem started now, because suddenly there was a new purchase order with now an amended price that was now 5 rand 10 cents. That was sent to QTech now. Now they've got 2 different prices with 2 purchase orders. Seeing what they've seen, they've decided now to report this matter. There's a whistleblower from the company that decided to report to the Department of Enterprise. And then that's where everything started. Then the department tasked the Transnet to have an investigation. Then investigation ensued. And then eventually, like, he was requested to finish the processes of the tender that was awarded to SK, of which he delayed. He delayed up until the 12th of April. That's where everything started to connect the dots to our case now, because the investigating officer from Transnet, he then now confronted him to say, I need those processes, papers. So, and then we see something happening now in this case. Exactly on the 12th, we see Tao driving to Katiso Molefe's house, according to the data. And then also the tracker, the vehicle tracker. And then they both drive to QTech for the first time. They go scouts there.
Witness B,
And that's
before you move on to that portion, perhaps to just point out to the commissioners that the scheme is described at paragraph 36.3 until 26.3 till 26.5. Witness,
do we have that graph that was displayed?
We can make it available.
So that we can insert it into our files.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Khumalo. Witness B, if you can then start at paragraph 26.6. This is now where you deal with the relationship between Mr. Lucky Molefe and Katiso Molefe and his, I guess, the request for assistance in this regard once the scheme was discovered.
Yes. This is now, as I've said, that on the top, that's when now the investigating officer from Transnet requested those documents from Lucky. And then okay, maybe
Just to assist you, Witness B, this is where you start to deal with the communication and information from the cell phones, which shows you the communication between Mr. Molefe, Lucky Molefe, and Mr. Katiso Molefe, as well as Mr. Puletau.
the communication, it's mostly between Mr. Molefe and Tau, and then we then see them meeting like personally on the for the first time on the 12th. After like we learned that he was requested to bring the papers, but instead of like bringing the papers, we see action happening between Tau and Molefe. When they start now going to the very same QTech to scout.